Hello, I'm David, this is Hobby Jackal, and we're getting our first proper look at the brand new Chameleon Skinks for Warcry. Now, I don't know about you, but I think these are harking back to some classic Mark Gibbons artwork, as many models today are. And also in this article, we're getting a quick glimpse of some scenery that I reckon is going to turn up in the next Warcry expansion box. Let's go take a look. Right, so here's the Warhammer community article in question. Pull back the vines and catch a glimpse of the Narwood's elusive Chameleon Skinks, released on the 10th of October 2022. Right, let's get down to the good stuff. I'm going to skip the video just for the moment because I'm going to come back to that because there are some glimpses of some potentially new scenery, but let's have a look at these new lads. So as you can see straight away, we've got a different design aesthetic than we had in the Starblood Stalkers released for Warhammer Underworlds. And this certainly looks like the same model that we had previewed previously. Now I'll just whiz down and quickly show you the other one before I start talking about these two. And as you can see, they both kind of follow the same design, so they're going to be quite an interesting set. We don't know how many models we're getting yet, but previously Chameleon Skinks were released in boxes of 5, so probably 10, or potentially 5 really elite miniatures. So anyway, the aesthetics moved from the Starblood Stalkers that I think I was obsessed with chameleons in pet shops as a kid, so I think that was more like a Yemen chameleon, and these guys are more the sort of grumpier, aggressive panther chameleons. They've got those chunky heads. So anyway, these guys, and this chap in particular, really reminded me of something, so I went back and hit the books, looking back to the first Lizardman army book and this classic piece of artwork by Mark Gibbons. Now this is Oxalotl, a special character that was included in the book. I didn't have a model released for it until a little bit later, and particularly notable for actually standing in pretty much the same position. He's holding a dart, he's got his blowpipe down there. And this is something we've seen them do for the subscription models for Warhammer Plus and for the various ranges such as the Cruel Boys and the Orcs, going back to the really classic Orc models. So yeah, looking at the details here, blowpipe dart, standard Chameleon Skink there. There's also a little lizard on the base, which if you Google skink, very much looks to be painted in the same style as some of those. Slightly odd positioning with his blowpipe hanging down over the base there, because to me that looks like it's actually going to be wedged in the soil. So if I was building this guy, I might just raise him up a little bit. Looking at the other one, it's nice to see we've got the blow dart in action, and you can see his little grippy feet gripping onto that masonry at the bottom, and a striped, almost kind of coral snake-like snake crawling in and out of a skull on the base. And this is something we actually did see back on sort of some really classic Lizardmen models previously. So curious that we're only seeing 2 of the models, but throughout the text in the article they do seem to suggest that this whole warband will be Chameleon Skinks, and this is something that I did predict in an earlier video where I was perhaps suggesting that they'd use Warcry as an opportunity to fill in some blanks as they've done for Kill Team with 40k. And this was going to be an interesting case of seeing whether they might just like sneak in a Croxagur or something like that. Something worth touching upon really briefly here is just that they did specify that everything coming in these warbands for Warcry is going to be new, so we're not getting upgrade sprues and that kind of thing as they've seen for 40k. So whoever's going to be fighting against these guys, going to be brand new. So this leads me on to the scenery glimpsed in the video, which might be giving us a hint of what's to come. So looking at the video, we zoom in past a load of scenery. There's lots of kind of bogwood and all sorts of things that we've seen them use to make terrain before, so this isn't stuff that we're expecting to see in the kit. Now in the background early on in this video, you can see this kind of pyramid in the background, which I suspect is something to do with Talaxis. Now given the size of this relative to the scenery that we're seeing here, I suspect this is just something big and magnificent that the creative team at Games Workshop have created for these videos. But kind of cool to see it, and you know, could be a hint of something we'll see in future. It might even be a piece of scenery. It's going to be bloody big if it is, but that would be really cool. So anyway, as we zoom in a bit further, you've got the scenery on the left, which is exactly the same as one of the Narloks that we've seen in previous kits, and given the recent release for Kill Team, it's not completely out there to expect that we might get a few of the same Narloks or a few of the same pieces, or maybe even the scatter terrain in this next box set. However, the exciting bits here, and just ignore this Chameleon skin because we looked at those guys loads. This part here, this is a big old tusk holding up this bamboo platform, which is not something we saw on the previous Narloks. So this part here does seem to be something we've seen before. Here's the really obvious one as well. This whole piece here, so whatever this is, and it looks kind of like potentially the back of a skull going by the paint colour, and this kind of tanning leather here. So if you just saw this on its own and you were told this is a bit of a scenery for a faction, you would just go Ghur tribes if you're familiar with them, because their moor pot is covered in these kind of stretched levers. Whether this is the case or not is kind of anybody's guess. So we are in the realm of Ghur though, so this is kind of the way that you'd be building your encampment anyway. You're going to be using what's available. There's going to be plenty of leather and that kind of thing. And you're in the middle of a forest as well, so pretty much, you know, it is this bamboo, it's going to be trees and woods and skulls and horns, which are pretty much everywhere. So even if a city of Sigmar encampment was setting up camp in the Narwood, it's probably going to look a bit like an Ogre Mawtribe's version of a nice hut. But, you know, the one thing I have said previously, I think Warcry lends itself really well to a new Man-Eaters kit, and whilst we've got a great pirate in Warhammer Underworlds recently, they would be a great addition to Warcry. They're due an update. They're currently resin models that were formerly metal models released back with the original Ogre Kingdoms line. They're described as mercenaries. They're each equipped differently. They'll probably have a couple of nobblers on the sprue, which would let you boost up the numbers to have a decent-sized Warcry warband. And I just think they'd fit really well. So whether they're in this box or not, hopefully they're going to come at some point. So the next expansion is called Sundered Fate. A lot of people have been guessing online that that might mean Tzeentch. I'm going to sort of just unhelpfully say I don't think that's necessarily a given. For example, the latest Kill Team box sets, which pitched the Kazakin from the Imperial Guard against the Necrons, was called Shadow Vaults, and it used a lot of the same scenery from the previous box, and there's nothing really in that name that hinted towards the two kill teams that were fighting each other, or certainly not in terms of specific words that couldn't have meant a whole host of other things. So it could be anything we haven't seen before. They keep on mentioning these insectoid creatures underneath Gallet, and we've got an Underworlds warband underneath the Narwood who happens to be wearing an insectoid face mask, so who knows what's coming. So we get a little bit more fluff in this article around Talaxis, or the Eye of Chotec as the Seraphon know it. And this is the Seraphon void ship that crash landed in what was the Narwood, incinerated most of it, but then the Realm Shaper engines that just changed things up to make them much more suitable to the little Seraphon metabolisms went a bit haywire. They survived the crash, went a bit wonky, and then started pumping their magical machinery wizardry-ness into the remains of the Narwood, which made everything there grow extra fast, including the predators that stalk about the place. These particular Seraphon are one of two types mentioned in the Warcry lore we've had so far, and that's the surviving Seraphon, or the descendants, or the ones that are being spawned from this crashed void ship, that are instinctively gone a bit feral, but they're still defending the ruins, with the second type mentioned being the Seraphon that are trying to reclaim treasure of the ship by entering from outside of the Narwood. The article notes that a mighty void ship would usually be protected by powerful Saurus warriors, yet few of the wrecked vessels' gestation chambers remain intact, and many are riddled with malfunctions, creating feral spawn who spill into the jungle beyond. It now falls to the nimble Chameleon Skinks to harry invading warbands with stealth and guile. Spawned from a roiling pool surrounded by ornate plaques representing Huanchi, the unseen hunter, the shadow-touched Skinks of Talaxis are devoted sentinels, who ensure the sacred ground of their fallen home remains unsullied. Concealed by natural camouflage, these stranded hunters pincushion their foes with hallucinogenic poison darts from the cover of tree and vine. Poor souls under the influence of these drugged darts often end up giddily capering into the rending limbs of Narlegs, or taking fatal plunges into greedy swamps that can gulp down a Fomeroid crusher without a trace. So yeah, those last parts are really interesting. Going to be cool if we get some kind of swampier scenery for the Narwood, but certainly that's not something we've seen in the video. And it's going to be super cool to see how the abilities and potentially reactions are going to represent the ability of these blow darts. They finish up by noting these swivel-eyed trappers don't work solo, preferring to hunt in silent stalk packs that move in perfect cohesion. You'll be able to see more of them shortly, as well as the tough competition they're up against in the next Warcry box. So there we have it, tough competition. Don't really know if that's a hint of something, because that could mean an awful lot, and most of the things they're going to come up against are going to be kind of tough. It does rule out it being just a load of nobblers on their own, sauntering through the forest. Right, cheers again for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please do feel free to like and subscribe, or leave a comment below, or whatever you'd like. It's up to you. I'm not going to make you do anything. Yeah, free country, innit? I don't know why I'm still here. Anyway, have a lovely day.